So I've been going through moments of like super harsh anxiety to moments of like pure bliss and relaxation. Also, this is like the first time that I've been able to sleep more than 8 hours in like a year or two.
Yeah.
So it's been super fucking nice. But like, yeah, it's just moments of like bliss and peaceful and then horrible anxiety, panic attacks. And I'm just like, fuck this.
Yeah, I feel that. I feel like there's like moments I kind of like, you can like take yourself, I don't know, like for me, it's like if I take a bath or like if I like isolate myself in like a moment, I can kind of forget that everything is going on and then I relax. But the second I look at the news or I, you know, see Instagram or whatever, it just like kicks it back into a high gear of anxiety. But, you know, trying the best to not feel so anxious.
Yes. Yeah.
But yeah, sleep. I've been sleeping a lot. The first couple of nights I definitely wasn't sleeping well. But no, I've just been like, no news before bed, obviously important.
Yes.
And that's been helping me a lot. Just like reading a book or something.
What book?
Right now I'm reading, oh God, how can I not remember the name of it? It's a book I've been trying to read for a really long time. It's about Jan Werner and his time at Rolling Stone.
Is he a photographer? Who's Jan Werner?
He was the editor of Rolling Stone the founder. I don't know if I'm saying his name right. I do know it's Jan. I think it's Werner, Jan something. I don't know. I shouldn't be talking about this because I don't really know what I'm talking about.
You are okay.
Now I'm going to look at it. Yeah, Wenner, I guess. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know how you pronounce his last name, but he was the co-founder of Rolling Stone magazine.
Wow. Wait, wasn't your uncle?
Sticky Fingers. That's what it's called. It's called Sticky Fingers. I knew it.
Sticky Fingers.
Yeah, it's good. Okay. I've like started so far. It starts with him and John Lennon and Yoko Ono like driving around San Francisco, and it's just really interesting to like. It kind of like takes you back to that era, and like that's like something that I've always wanted. I've always wished I was in like the 60s and 70s. So for me, it's like really entertaining to read about that time. So I'm reading that. The book I couldn't even remember the name of.
How is it? How far are you in on it?
I'm like in the first like 10 pages, but good so far. I've had it for a really long time and been trying to read it, so now it's like a good time to do it.
Oh, JANNWENNER.
Yeah. Jan, I know it's Jan Werner, I guess. But yeah, I bought it like forever ago. Now I'm finally reading it, so that's nice. Are you reading anything good?
No. I'm actually trying to like get the fuck off my phone.
Yeah.
Which has, dude, it's been so negative and like anxiety inducing. So there's this book that I've been reading for like a year. I can never finish a book, but it's called The Power of Intention by Dr. Dwayne Dyer. And then also Revolution by Russell Brand.
Oh yeah, I've heard that's really good.
Yeah, he's one of my favorite speakers, so to read his book I'm excited to do. Cool. I just picked it up last night.
Nice.
Like I literally just picked it up and then I put it back down and I was like, I should read this. And then today I'm like, I'll read it.
I'll read it. Yeah. Well, sometimes you just have to be like, yes, today is the day. I feel that. How's San Francisco? Is it weird up there?
It is weird. You know, you leave your door and like you're gonna be fighting like crazy drivers and bad traffic and seeing like homeless people like dying on the street and you know, just like stuff like that. And then now you go out, like I'm expecting that same San Francisco, that like same anxiety inducing, but also beautiful city. And it's just empty. So it's weird. I don't know, but like I'm getting used to it. It's like the first week of like the stay in place order, and I guess it's like day 5, day 6 or whatever since it came out, and like I'm just getting used to it. So the hardest part is like going from my daily regular schedule to like nothing, to zero. What about you? How's LA?
LA is like kind of the same. We were trying to like hike every day, but a lot of the hike trails are like really packed, and like it's hard to social distance on a trail like that. So Tom and I have just been like doing neighborhood walks instead of trails because we just are trying not to be around people.
Nice.
But yeah, I mean, it's like when you're driving, like the few times we've been driving places, it's like, like the 405 at 5 o'clock on a weekday was like empty. So to see stuff like that, to see like no cars on the road and have the roads be empty is like really crazy. But it makes me feel good that people are actually staying home and, taking it seriously for the most part. So
yeah,
we're in West Hollywood, and West Hollywood's had a lot of cases, so we're just being really cautious.
Oh, wow. Okay. Have you like gotten into a routine or a schedule since?
I mean,
because what was your life before this?
My life, my life before this. I mean, I had a little bit of a break over the winter because I stopped touring with Gryffin. So it was nice to sort of like be home and be working on projects here and be doing like working with a lot more local artists. And that was really nice. And I was like starting to work with a lot of like really great new up and coming female artists. So that was really fun.
Awesome.
And then all of a sudden, like, everything, like I basically started festival season. I started at Okeechobee, and then came back, and then this all happened. So, just as we're gearing up for festival season, and like I was looking at like a really busy couple months, and now it's not. So I feel like I went from having like 2 months of like being local, and then was like prepared to be away for a long time, and nope, that didn't happen. So
are you okay with that though? How are you feeling about it?
I'm definitely anxious. But my parents are in New York, and I've been talking to them a lot, and I feel really lucky that they are supportive no matter what. And they understand that it's like going to be a bit of a financial hardship for me. And I'm lucky that I've been saving for the past couple of years, like pretty steadily, but, I mean, yeah, it's, I'm pulling clothes to sell. I'm trying to figure out print sale stuff. And, it's hard. Christina Bukrevsky and I started a wedding company, in January end of January, early February. And, we were really hoping that would take off. And, of course, weddings are being canceled and postponed. And so it's just like it's a really bad time to be an event photographer in any sort of capacity. Whether you're doing weddings or corporate or music or whatever, I think all of us are really hurting. And so just figuring out ways to make money and keep in touch with the community and stay sane. Yeah. I've never been like a super scheduled person in terms of a routine. But yeah, I'm trying to like, wake up every morning, have a cup of coffee. We are lucky enough to have a roof deck. So like gets a little bit of fresh air and outdoor time. And then, and then either do like a yoga class or a workout. I have a trainer, and her and I are doing like virtual workouts. So, do one thing every day that's like physical, and then like do some editing. Yeah. I mean, I have a couple big projects that I'm working on. I'm redoing my bedroom, which is like fun. And then I'm redoing my website. So 2 things that are awesome. Big projects. And so that's my focus right now.
I feel like that's a big thing. I just got, I think we're kind of delayed a little bit. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, awesome.
Can you hear me?
We're delayed. Yeah, I can hear you. That's a big thing right now. Like I was just talking to another person yesterday, and she was like, I need to redo my website, and I'm redoing our room. And I was like, Yeah, it sounds like the only thing to do at this time is like a website in a room, and
Yeah.
yeah.
I haven't had a website for a couple years. I think
Oh shit.
my website, I think I lost my domain in like 2018.
Wait, so you don't even have a website?
I don't have a website. No, I haven't had a website for like a full year. Which is really bad as a photographer. It's like probably one of the worst things you can do. So, but I do have decks that I like when people ask to see work I send out. I have very specific decks for everything I shoot. So I've got like a corporate event deck, a music event deck, a product deck, a love deck, like all these decks. So I typically send those out as samples. But I have a web designer.
Wait, so a deck is like a folder of those types of photos?
Yeah, it's kind of like a digital book. So it's like a PDF book almost.
Okay.
And it's like, yeah. And it just is like an example portfolio of those kinds of photos. So that's what I've been doing for the last year.
Gotcha.
But it's kind of silly and it doesn't really make sense. So now I'm doing my website, and my friend Ned is designing it for me, and he's a really awesome human. And so he's like, okay, like the skeleton's there, like you just need to upload folders. And I'm like, right. So I've just like been sitting staring at like 30 hard drives being like, how do I see this? So yeah, I mean, it's a good time to have like big projects, but it's also kind of daunting. So, but like right now I'm finishing up edits from a shoot I did before all this started, with this artist named Sar, who is awesome. And she has like a very specific vision, and we did this big shoot, and now I'm like going through and editing the stuff for that. So that's been fun and distracting. And it's nice to be like doing portraiture work and editing that. Something different for me.
So I'm looking at your Instagram right now, and it's like super colorful, which I love. And it's very Get Tiny style. Obviously, are your portraits like that as well?
Yeah, I don't know. My portraits kind of, I really, I really try and have my portraits reflect what the person I'm shooting wants. And I feel lucky enough to have a style that, while it is like super specific on my Instagram, when you look at my work, it can kind of, it can alter like depending on the person. So Sarah, for example, she likes that sort of like 80s soft film style. So the editing style is a lot more like that. And it's like, usually I would probably do them a little bit like cleaner. But for her, we're doing like a little bit more like film-esque. So it's been fun to like experiment with different styles for different people. So,
yeah,
I think being able to be fluid with how you edit, obviously like you shoot the way you shoot, but I think being able to be fluid with how you edit depending on who you're shooting is important.
Yeah, definitely. I want to get more into your shooting. Like, can you run us through, there's nobody else listening right now, but eventually there will be.
The general us.
Can you run us through like how, the general us. Can you run us through like how you got started? And yeah.
Well, it's kind of a long story, but I guess we have time, so I'll go for it. My Uncle Joel, I feel like I've probably told you the story at some point, but I'll say it for the sake of the recording. Yeah. My Uncle Joel, who's my dad's oldest brother, and also my godfather, he used to tour with Joni Mitchell and Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young and Prince as their guitar tech and their photographer.
Prince? I didn't know that.
Yes. Yeah, he lived with Prince for 2 years. And there's some really good stories from that,
Is he still alive? Yeah. Oh my God, I want to hear.
My Uncle Joel, yeah. And he lives in Berkeley, so you should hit him up.
What?
He is by far the coolest person I know. No offense to my dad, who's also really cool. But he gave me my first camera when I was like 8, because I was taking the camp that I went to had photography classes. And he was like, I think you should do, like, yeah, you can do what I did. And I like took that super literally, I guess. And I was like, cool, I'm going to be a music photographer. Yeah, so that's kind of how I started. And then I took classes when I was starting, and when I went to camp, I did a lot of photography. And then I took classes at the International Center of Photography in New York when I was like in 8th grade. And I took classes there. And then in high school, like basically all throughout my high school experience. And then when I was a senior, I interned at the International Center of Photography. And then when I went to college, I studied photography and got my BFA with a focus in photography.
Where'd you go to college?
I went to Pitzer College. It's one of the Claremont colleges in California.
Okay.
It's like a really small liberal arts school, but it's really fun. So yeah, I mean, I had great professors in college. I had a professor named Lisa Auerbach, who is an amazing photographer and artist. And she used to always be like, you always crop people's feet when you photograph. And no one had ever told me that before. And I think it's because I'm really small. So I'm always like looking up at people. But, like you learn, like I think every professor and teacher that you have like teaches you something really unique about your own style. And no one had ever told, like, I'd been shooting for years. I'd taken a lot of classes and no one had ever been like, yeah, you crop people's feet because you're small. And she was finally like, yeah, you do this. And now it's something I like pay so much attention to. So yeah, that's my history of shooting. I started shooting shows. One of my first shows I ever shot was in New York. I shot Kings of Leon on film.
Oh man! I think it was at
Terminal 5 in New York. But yeah, that was for like a class when I was in high school. And then
Oh shit! So you started in music when you were in high school, right?
Yeah. And then when I was a freshman in college, or I guess it was like right after our senior year of high school, one of those 2 years, 2010 or 2011, 2 of my friends in New York, Graham Fort Gang and Lenny Vigdon, started a little production company called Bass Squad. And they used to throw like underground kind like EDM events in New York. And I started shooting for them. And then I started shooting for this blog called Dope on Plastic, which was like a music party blog. And then I started shooting for the Unts, which was like another EDM electronic music blog. I remember that one. Yeah. So the Unts they were like really instrumental in pushing me forward in terms of like shooting a lot around LA and shooting a lot of festivals. They would get me, like I would apply for press passes with them for almost everything. And so that's kind of how I started shooting festivals in California. And then my senior year of college, I was brought on as an intern for Lightning in a Bottle. And I shot for their PR company at the time. And that kind of like really set everything in motion for where I am now.
When did you move over here from New York?
I went Pitzer when I went to college. So I moved here for college in 2010. And then I stayed. So I've been out here 10 years, which is wild, truly wild. I didn't ever think that I would end up in California, but here I am. Living in LA.
Dang, you're old. Holy cow.
I'm old. I'm old, yeah. I am.
I'm kidding.
I'm ancient.
I didn't want to be the one to say it, but yeah. How did you come up with your style is like what I'm interested in. Like what gravitated towards these like, hello? Can you hear me?
Hello?
Hello?
Hi. Hi, can
Hi.
you hear me? I literally don't know. I don't know what just happened. I like moved my computer and it just like went black and then it came back.
Yay.
That was odd. I don't know what I was saying before that.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
How did you come up with your style? Like super colorful, super, I don't even know how to describe it.
I was really attached to film growing up. Like I studied in dark rooms and I studied in color dark rooms. And I think working in a color dark room and learning how to balance, like really learning color theory and how to balance colors in a dark room. I think that was a ton of it, because then when I switched to Lightroom and I was like, what? You just have to move like a little like mouse, like you don't have to like do dials and like hold up color films and like do all these things that I had learned to do in a dark room. And now all of a sudden it was like with a mouse in front of me and it took 2 seconds. Yep. So I think I just spent a lot of time like experimenting with colors and with HSL and figuring out how to bring Nikon. I shoot Nikon. And Nikon has like an incredible color profile on their cameras. And there's like so much depth in their colors that you can bring out. And I just sort of experimented with that. And I'd spend a lot of time on my HSL and sort of figuring out like really subtle variations. I also do a lot of split toning in my work. So yeah, I think that like bringing in a film aspect and then bringing in like a color darkroom aspect, but like digitalized, that was like a really big part of my work. Cause I used to, in a color darkroom, you do a print, everything is a knob. If you've never been in a color darkroom, it's like, I haven't. Yeah. No. So basically it's pitch black. There's no red light. And you do everything is through like an RGB, like knob
filter.
So yeah, okay, it's like individual knobs on the enlarger. So you can adjust those knobs to like give you like a little bit warmer or cooler, like more or less of like whatever you're doing. It's also where I learned, rarely can grandma make baked yams, which is like, basically the beginning of color theory. So red, cyan, blue, yellow, green, magenta. And so that's an acronym for that. And it helps you like, cause like then like what your parallel colors are on a color wheel, and you can sort of like, it's like kind of the basis of matching color theory. And so that was something that I always paid attention to in my editing. Like if my photo is really magenta, I'd add some green, balance it out. So I'd say that was like, that's kind of like the basis of, me understanding color is like working on like switching these knobs in a dark room. And then you'd go out into the hallway and you'd put your photo up on a wall and you'd take like color films, like, plastic color films with magenta, green, blue, yellow, red, cyan, and you'd hold them up to your eye and look at the photo through those films to see what color adjustments you wanted to make. So that's sort of how I learned color. And like specific, like getting really specific in terms of color. And so I tried to bring that into my digital aspect of working, which. Wow,
that's super amazing. Holy cow.
Yeah, so that's how you do color in a color darkroom. If nobody knew, that's how. Color darkrooms are really fun.
Now we know.
Now you know. They're really fun. It's fun because it's pitch black, and like you basically learn, when you're learning how to print, you learn with the lights on, like by feel kind of, and then because it's really pitch black and the only light you get is from your enlarger. So when you're in a dark room with like, 10 people and it's pitch black, like you're going to run into somebody eventually. So it's like a lot of yelling out and being like behind you, walking behind, and then like whatever. I definitely like as a 16-year-old, like had some awkward butt touches probably in a color darkroom that were accidental. But
sure.
Totally accidental. But yeah, I mean, I'd say that's like where my color knowledge comes from. And then it's just something I've experimented with like more and more as programs get more and more in depth with like being able to change everything.
Yeah. Yeah. Split toning is a beautiful, beautiful thing to happen to the world. I don't know. It just saves my ass so much. And there's so much that you can do with it. And it changes the image so much just by split toning alone.
Same. And I was kind of taught, like, you know, when you're formally taught, like, people are like, you want your blacks to be blacks and like your whites to be white. So I never really like messed with split toning until I met Daniel Zetterstrom, who, if you don't know his work, you should look at it because he's amazing. And he's one of the original like lightning in a bottle DoLab photographers.
What's his name? Daniel
Zetterstrom. He is, he's awesome. He's like been one of my idols for a really long time. Probably one of my biggest influences in my own work. And the first time I ever shot for Lightning in a Bottle, he was sitting in the editing trailer and I was watching him edit and he showed me how to split tone properly. And I was like, oh my God, you're amazing. This is everything. And I was like, oh, but like your blacks can be blacks. And he's like, your blacks can be purple, your blacks can be green, your blacks can be red, like whatever you want your blacks to be, your blacks can be, your whites can be pink. Like, and no one had ever said that to me before. And so that to me, like blew my mind, and to learn how he edited and to see his style, especially in terms of like the festival world, I was like, wow, this is a whole new world. So yeah, I'd say that's my color stuff.
That's dope. Good job. It looks so sick. So how did you get involved in or with like Lightning in a Bottle? Because for those of you who know you, I guess that's why they would be listening, would be like through Lightning in a Bottle or Dirtybird Campout. So how did you get started with them? And then also I want to ask after that is, do you like festival work or do you like touring more?
Ooh, that's a tough question. We'll come back to that.
So let's come back.
For Lightning in a Bottle, when I was in college, I was really good friends with, I'm still really good friends with, a guy named Max Frazier, who now works for Infamous PR. And he was working for the old PR company he interned for the old PR company that did DoLab. And he brought me on to LIB as an intern for the PR company. So I had been shooting festivals for the Unts. I had done like Lucidity and Serenity Gathering, and I think maybe like I had done like Coachella for them or something, and a bunch of shows. So I felt like I had like these like transformational festivals kind of like under my belt already. And then Max brought me on to Lightning in a Bottle for the PR company, and they let me have a space in the photo trailer for the photographers that were hired to shoot the festival. So that's where I met Daniel Zetterstrom. That's where I met Wachara. That's where I met Aaron Glassman and Guru. And I shot with the four of them, and I was like, this is amazing. You're all amazing. Like sitting in the editing room between like Wachara and Daniel, I was like, I couldn't focus on my own photos. I was just like, oh my God, what are you editing? How are you doing that? What are you doing this way? Like, you know, it was like sitting with two like masters, you know? So
did you feel, cause I know we've had this conversation a couple times, feeling less than, or like you're comparing their images to yours. Cause I remember we were shooting a music festival in Texas and I kept looking over somebody's computer, like in envy, like, oh my God, that photo is so good. That photo is so good. And you're like, oh, yeah. Scott, stop looking at their computer. Like you gotta not look at their computer. Oh, so did you have that at that time? And then do you still come up with that every once in a while, or have you kind of learned to move on?
No, I mean, literally every festival I look at other people's computers and I'm like, oh my God, you're so amazing. I'm never going to do that, you know? And it's like, that doesn't go away. Like all of our peers are so ridiculously talented, that I just don't think there's ever going to be a point where I don't look at the computer next to me and I'm like, holy shit, that was amazing. Like, a recent example would be, we just did Okeechobee in Florida, and I shot it with Ivan and Alex Perez were my other two photographers, and then who were sitting on either side of me. And then also with Gabe Tiano and Trevor Dean, we're doing video. And two things happened. Well, every time all of them took a photo, I was like blown away. Ivan took a couple shots of Rufus de Sol that I was like, cool, never going to shoot them because how could I ever beat that photo? Alex photographed a stage during, I think it was like during a Tipper DJ set, and like this tent was so full, and he used the photo mask and got this like incredible, amazing photo. And I was like, cool, not shooting that stage because that's the photo. and then Gabe Tiano and I shot the SpaceX launch during Base Nectar set together, like kind of side by side. And he was doing a time lapse and I did long exposures and ended up doing a composite, and his time lapse was just like the coolest thing ever. And I was like, why? Like, so I think, yeah, I mean, I definitely still have those moments. Like, our peers are so talented, and, but you know, the best part about doing a festival is that you get to learn from your peers. You get to sit next to them and watch them edit and see how they're shooting and see their skills. And I think that it's like going to school every time. Like, I never have an experience where I'm not learning something from the person sitting next to me, you know? So.
Right. Yeah. You're so correct.
Okay. You know, I try not to think of it as like, oh, that shot is like better than what I could shoot. I just am like, wow, this photographer is obviously, like, we're all different shooters. So I'm just like, what can I learn from this peer? And so, but it definitely at the beginning, I was like, you're all so good. And I just want to turtle under the table because I can't. And, you know, but like the festival photography community is it's such a community, and everyone is so willing to teach you and help you. And I've really found that that's like the best part of it.
Can you think of one of the best lessons that you've learned from like working from others in this career?
I mean, 100% the split toning from Daniel.
Okay, that's it?
No. I mean, that's definitely like that was probably the first lesson I learned from somebody else at a festival. But like, you know, last year at Lightning in a Bottle, I was like with Michael Drummond, and he was using a prism. And I mean, I don't know if I should say this. I don't know if I'm allowed to give away everyone's secrets, but I'm going to say it anyway. Michael Drummond was shooting in the pit, and he was using a prism, and he was holding it like on the bottom of the lens. And I'd always used the prism on the top of my lens to like reflect upwards. And he was using it on the bottom. He's like, yeah, that way you hide all the wires from the lower part of stage. And I was like, oh my God, you're brilliant. Like, how have I, you know, like, stuff like that, where I'm just like, I never thought of that. And like, you're a freaking genius. So yeah, I mean, I think I've literally learned something from every festival. You know, I learned how to shoot pyro correctly from Doug Van Sant. You know, he sat with me at one of the Insomniac events and was like, oh, this is how you shoot, like, turn your aperture up. And I was like, oh my God, you're a genius. You know, it's just like, you know, Julian Cassidy taught me to turn on auto ISO when I'm switching video at night. Like, you know, it's just like everyone teaches you something. There's not one person I don't think I've learned something from who I've shot with. But those are just some specific lessons.
Yeah. Awesome. I knew the wire thing. That one I knew. I was like, what? You're so smart. Thank you. I know.
Just something I never had thought of it. I never was like, yeah, that's a good way to hide wires. So.
So how did you get involved with Gryffin? And then how has touring been?
I love touring. I love it. Touring it's super fun. You know, obviously I like Griffin's team. So I started working with Gryffin because Justin Lubliner, who does Darkroom, we have a couple of mutual friends. We both grew up in New York, and he called me one day and was like, hey, I have an artist I'd like you to work with, who needs sort of like his vision like directed a little bit. And that was when I started working with Gryffin, and we just started I worked with him for 6 months before I shot one of his shows, actually, or like 4 months. What? We did like
a bunch of portrait sessions.
We did like a lot of lifestyle and portrait sessions, and then he finally had a show, and I shot the show. It was in Orange County, I believe. And then he did Coachella for the first time, and I shot that set. And then after that, I toured with him for like 2.5 years.
Wow.
Yeah, super fun. Super awesome. His crew is amazing. He's an amazing artist to work for. Super family vibes. Really close with his wife, Stephanie, who's also amazing. Adore their dog, Gigi. Yeah, they are, I think, probably some of the best people you could ever tour with. Just like everyone on that crew is family, and they treat everyone like family. So tours felt really easy and really fast. And it's also really cool to be able to shoot a group that has like a dance music group that has a live component. You know, that to me was like something really special that I got to shoot. And then when Jordan Rosenchuk came on as the creative director, the show went to like a totally new level, and I was able to do more experimental work and like sort of stuff that was like more doing composites and like doing GIFs and doing like adding star aspects and stuff like that. And that was really cool and fun to do. Yeah. So I love touring though. And
I have a question.
Yeah.
Does touring, like seeing the same show every night, does that ever get boring? Or they're like, because you're in a new venue each night, does it spice it up, I guess? I don't know.
I definitely never got bored. Like every venue has its own challenges that you have to deal with. And like it's always a new space, which is really fun. And then the crowd's always different. So like you're always feeding off the energy. Like in the pit, you're feeding off the energy of like the band, and then you're feeding off the energy of the crowd and trying to like capture that in the best way. And then the space changes. So no, I was never bored. Also, his music is like really catchy. So
yeah.
There was never a time where I was like, I can't hear this song again. I was always like, oh yay, this song. And it was really cool to like watch him grow into, you know, he's huge now. So being able to like be part of that process and watch him go from playing like really small rooms to playing huge rooms, and then like doing Sahara last year at Coachella, and you know, he packed it. Like it was really wild to photograph that whole journey of like starting small and then getting really big. Yeah. So that was really cool. And yeah, I love touring. I mean, bunks are really comfortable. I fit in them really well. And yeah. So yeah, I definitely tour again. You know, I would love to see what touring with like a female would be like, with a female artist. I think that would be different and interesting and cool. And yeah.
And how was like managing a relationship back at home while you were on tour?
Like romantic relationship?
Yes, romantic.
I am lucky enough to have found one of the most supportive partners, I think, in the world.
Woohoo!
He is amazing. It's, you know, it's hard as a female to be like, yeah, I'm going to go tour with like 30 dudes. Cool. You know, most guys aren't like, yeah, that's fine. But Tom has never not been supportive. He became really close with like the whole Gryffin crew. So like that, I think that was really like, it was easy because he trusted all of them. And, you know, obviously we trust each other a lot. And, you know, like it was for me, like what made it the easiest was like not having the pressure. Like at no point was he ever like, you need to call me every day. Like you need to check it, you know? So like when I had time, like I would call him, of course, and like we'd FaceTime and I'd check in. But some days like all I could send was like, hey, I love you and I miss you. And like, you know, and that was enough for him to like, you know, just hear that. And I think having a supportive partner made it so much easier to be on the road because I had no anxiety about like not being home, you know? And he also like, you know, he would fly out to a lot of shows. Like we try and see each other like every 2 or 3 weeks. So
awesome.
Yeah, it was surprisingly easy. He makes it really easy. So I'm lucky.
Awesome. Yay.
Yay.
Good job, Tom.
Yeah, he's awesome. Shout out Tom.
Yeah. Okay, so now that you've answered both of those questions, what do you like better, touring or festival work or weddings? You do weddings, huh?
I do weddings, yeah. They're all really different, so I wouldn't say I like one more than the other. I love them all equally. It's like kind of like having children. You love them all equally no matter what. So,
but low key, you like one more than the other.
I love. No, I really don't think I do. When I'm not touring, I miss it. When I'm not doing festivals, I miss it. When I haven't done a wedding in a while, I miss it. Like I really think that they each have something super special about them. Like touring, you get to be really close with a specific group of people. You get to really perfect your craft and like experiment because you're shooting the same show every night, but you get to challenge yourself to shoot it in new ways. Festivals, like you usually only have 3 days to get the shots in your head or like, figure out new ways to shoot it. So it's a lot faster and a lot more, like every day is just like more, at a festival because it's like you're doing a million shows a day instead of just one. And then weddings to me are also like kind of like festivals. Like everyone is dancing, everyone's dressed up. There's like one-time moments that you need to catch. So
true.
I think, wow. I think of weddings a lot as like very parallel to festivals for me. And I try to shoot them with the same attitude.
Wow.
So yeah, I definitely don't think I mean, like, I don't understand, like, to me, like weddings are like parallels of festivals. So I treat it like that for sure. But yeah, I mean, I think for all of them, you have to think on your feet. You have to be ready to go. So I think, they all have like certain veins that run through them, but they're all special. I wouldn't say like one more than the other. I love them all equally.
So for somebody looking up at your work or looking up to you for your work or of your work, whatever, I can't speak right now.
I was like, no one really looks up to me because I'm really small.
Yeah, can we talk about your name really quick? How did you come up with Get Tiny?
Yes, we can talk about my name. So Get Tiny came about for a couple of reasons. I think first of all, I was sort of starting event photography when like Odagio and Rooks and Kirill was here. We're all like really big photographers. So nobody went by their name. Like everybody went by like some other sort of name. So that was definitely something I was like trying to do. Juliana Bernstein doesn't really like roll off the tongue. So I definitely knew I needed like something else. I'm pretty small in stature for those of you that don't know me. I'm 4'11", very small. And I try and use it to my advantage when I'm shooting. But obviously it's why Get Tiny came about because I am tiny. And then my friends in New York, when they'd go party, they used to be like, we're going to get huge. Like that was always the, like, we're going to like go big tonight. But I kind of was like, well, I'm going to get tiny. And so like that, that kind of became my name. And it worked. So,
that's awesome.
It's just like way easier to say like go for Tiny on a walkie than it is to say like go for Juliana. It's like such a long thing.
So for anybody looking up to your work and like wanting to, get to where you want to be, what would be some of the best advice that you could give them?
I mean, I know everybody says this, but it's definitely a pay your dues industry. Like you can't just jump in and be like, okay, like I'm a photographer, like pay me, like you need to prove that you've put in the work for it. And I think like I shot shows for free for a really long time, because I needed to build a portfolio. Probably like, I mean, I'd say since my senior year of high school. So probably like 4 or 5 years I was shooting shows, basically making no money. A couple artists would like pay me a little bit here and there to do shows, but for the most part, I was shooting for blogs for free for a really long time. But I built a portfolio that I like when I got to a point where I was like, okay, like I've been doing this for a long enough time where I feel like I could be a professional at it, that's when I started sending proposals to get paid. And honestly, the first time I sent a proposal to get paid and somebody said yes, I was like, really? Like, that worked? I think once you feel confident, like any job, like once you feel like, okay, like, yeah, I'm good enough to get paid for this, like you're not just like, you don't just like go to medical school and then you're like, okay, I'm a doctor, like pay me, like you do an internship, you do a residency, like you have to put in your dues, I think, in any industry. And so I think, so I think like once you feel confident enough that you've paid your dues and you've created a body of work that is worth like money, start sending out those proposals. Mm-hmm. People do say yes, believe it or not. It's kind of crazy. But the music industry is about to change a lot, I think.
How so?
I think we're going to see I just think we're going to see some sort of shift. I don't know what it's going to be, but I think like this time of slowing down and, reflecting, really realizing like how much of a community we are, how every part of this industry is tied together is really important. I hope it changes for the better. I hope like events become more, either like accessible or like aware of their audience. I don't know, who knows, but hopefully in a good way. And I also think I've had to sit down with promoters and be like, hey, like, they're like, oh, we can't pay you this, or like, oh, your budget's too high. And I'm like, look, like I'm not just working for 3 days and taking pictures. Like I am providing or like doing my best to provide you marketing for an entire year, and like, I think that's something that people don't really understand when they hire you at first. They're like, oh yeah, like come shoot our festival, I'll be here for 3 days. And like, that's it. But it's like, no, you shoot for 3 days, then you edit for like 10 days, or more sometimes. And then, and like the whole time you're thinking like, what will market this festival in a way that they'll have more ticket sales, for next year. Like you're, ultimately we're trying to help the production companies like sell what they want to sell. So.
Yeah. So in your opinion, what is a good thing that can come out of this time that we're in right now? I mean, it can be regarding the music industry or just the world in general.
I mean, I'm sure everyone would say this, but like we're all connected, like everyone influences everybody. I don't think there's like one person who's going to come out of this and being like, I am an individual and like what I do doesn't affect other people. Like clearly that's not the case. and like, I think this proves it like kind of more than ever that like we, like our entire world, we're all connected. We all have to support each other. I feel really lucky that I'm in an industry where I already feel incredibly supported. Like we have a group of really amazing, really supportive peers that come from all levels and all different backgrounds. And, I've never had a moment where I'm like with another photographer at a festival or like on a tour or like whatever. And they're like, I've never really, I think some people have experienced like some people being rude. I feel really lucky that I've never really felt that. I've never felt like in a pit and like somebody told me not to be there or like that. Like everyone's just polite and willing to help you and willing to teach you. And I think that's like super lucky to be in an industry that already like feels that connectedness and that like ability and will to help each other. So I think
that's beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, I think, thanks. I think coming out of this, hopefully the rest of the world is like, yeah, like we're all different, but like we all affect each other and we can all affect change together. So I hope that's what comes out of it,
Yeah, I hope so too. Does this I got like a few more questions for you, but does this time that we're in right now of like everything's shutting down and panic and whatever, if you don't want me to bring this up, I can cut it out, but yeah, you were in New York during 9/11, and is the experience of like how is this experience compared to that experience? Is that okay to ask, or
Yeah, no, I think that's a fine thing to ask. I was young when 9/11 happened. I was in 4th grade. It was a really confusing moment, and I just remember like talking to my mom and being like, I didn't really understand like what had happened, I guess. Like I knew that it had been a terrorist attack, and I knew a lot of people died. But I don't think I fully grasped like the effect it was going to have like on the world and not just like on New York, you know? And I remember like asking my mom, we lived in an apartment on the East End where you could see like kind of all the way down to downtown. And there was like so many American flags up. And I remember like staring at this American flag and being like, I don't understand like what is happening. And my mom was like, it's going to be really different for a while, but everyone's really going to care about each other. And that to me was like for her to say that and for me to hear that, I guess like made something super negative feel positive, you know?
Yeah.
And I think I'm trying to have that same, and like feeling it, especially like in the artist community, like that sort of same, like, yes, this is really negative. A lot of people are sick. A lot of people are dying. And that's tragic, truly. And I think the fact that we're coming together as a community to do everything we can to stop it and to like help people, you know, I've seen a lot of people donating masks, making masks, like, you know, thanking our police and our nurses and our doctors. And I think like the fact that people are showing gratitude to the people who are out there working and are also like being really conscious and staying inside and protecting their communities, like, you know, that is something positive that's coming out of this. So I'd say those are the two similarities that I can draw, is that like, you know, it's bringing out the best in people. Well, some people it's probably not bringing out the best.
Some people.
But yeah, I mean, I think, you know, being in New York and being that age, I think it was really scary, but it was also really eye-opening to like what a community really is and how your community is more than just your family or more than just your school or more than just your city. You know, it can be like your whole world. And that, like, yeah, that was like the first time I saw like, oh, okay, like people really care about each other. It's not just your family and it's not just your friends. Like there's a possibility for strangers to care about other strangers. And that I think is a really important concept to learn. Yeah.
And I want to finish this up with one last question. You're on your deathbed in many, many years.
Dark. Yeah, can we add the many, many years part?
Yes, many, 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 many years.
Okay,
Probably not the best thing to follow up with that last question.
Yikes. Okay, yeah.
And you
continue.
So you're passing on, whatever, and you can only take one memory, one object, one thing to the other side. What would you take? Nothing else will go with you.
Fuck. That's a really hard question. I can only take one memory?
Or it can be an object.
That's hard.
Either one.
I mean, I don't think I would take an object because I think when you're a spirit, maybe objects are obsolete unless I'm going to be like a spirit photographer, which I don't even know how that would go. That's a really tough question. I think I'm trying to think of like the last time my whole family was together and then Tom was there too. Because I'd want to have a memory that encapsulates like everybody who is super important to me. you know, to remember them. So I don't know. I'd have to think about that one. I mean, I think if I could pick like a feeling, you know, it'd be like,
yeah, it can be a feeling too.
Yeah, I think it'd just be like the feeling you get when like you're with someone you deeply care about, who deeply cares about you, and that feeling of like safety and comfort and joy, you know. And like, yeah, I feel like part of me wants to be like, oh, that feeling when you're in a pit and like you get the shot. Like, yeah, that's a great feeling, but like it doesn't. I think, you know, the people who support you are so important. And I think that comes through in all of your work as an artist and as a creative and as a person. So, yeah, I think I'd pick a feeling, that feeling of like feeling loved and feeling safe and feeling healthy and happy and just like that one moment of like warmth that you get. I'd
Beautiful.
pick that.
I've asked this question to a couple of people and I've never heard money yet.
Good. Well, why would you want money? What would you do with it?
What? I think it's funny how we live our lives just chasing like a paycheck and, you know, but that's something that is only for this material world. Nobody's going to take that on the other side. So I'm waiting for somebody to answer it like that, just to see who does it. And
interesting. Yeah. I mean,
yeah. It's these things that are important.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you gotta like at the end of your life, like you're not really thinking about the money you made, right? You're more thinking about the people who you spent time with and the moments that mattered. And I think if you're a sensible person, that's what you'll want to carry over, right? Not your thing. But I think, yeah, I mean, I think we're in a field where we're lucky enough that the chasing the paycheck comes from our hearts. Is that, I don't know if that's like really corny to say, but like ultimately we're creatives first.
Yeah.
And we're business people second. And I think at a time like this, that can be really hard to grasp and super scary. And it makes a lot of us question if we're doing the right thing, you know? Like, you know, I think a lot of us have been like, do I change my careers now? Like, do I do something that is more financially stable for the long term or when shit like this happens or whatever? But, you know, I think ultimately at the end of the day, we all choose to do something that we think not only makes us and our souls happy, but like is providing a service to the community in terms of like being able to capture these events and these moments and these like, you know, shows are special. Like I still go to a ton of shows, but like when you're in a crowd and you hear your favorite song and like you get to sing it with people you care about, like that moment is uncomparable. And I think we have the responsibility to capture that feeling, which I think is really important. So.
Beautifully said.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for sharing.
Of course.
Your wisdom.
Thank you for having me. Can you cut out the acid part for my parents so they can listen to this podcast?
No. Where can people find you really quick?
My website will be done at the end of the month, hopefully. So hopefully I'll have a website to share. But right now you can find me on Instagram at GetTiny. I'd say that's probably where you can find me right now. And if anybody ever wants to chat, just send me a DM. I like to answer questions and I love talking to people. And I think that, you know, there's a lot of competitiveness in this industry, but I also think there's enough work to go around for everybody. So I'm always happy to chat about it and give advice when I can. Or take advice. If any of you have advice for me, I'm learning every day. So.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Tiny.
Scott.
Appreciate you.
Thank you. Appreciate you. This was fun.